Welcome to the program. You're with Rise News in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Ahead over the next 30 minutes, all the global headlines you need to know about. You're watching Rise News now with me, Folake Adesugba. And our top stories, US President Donald Trump braces for possible Democratic reckoning as first polls close. We'll have our US correspondent tell us what sense we are getting about the latest elections updates. Plus, more than 200 mass graves containing thousands of bodies have been found in areas of Iraq that were once controlled by the Islamic State. And an army search operation is underway in Cameroon to rescue dozens of people kidnapped from a boarding school. Voting has ended in a number of key U.S. states in midterm elections that both parties have called the most important ballots in the nation's history. Counting is underway in a number of states, Kentucky and Indiana, and polls have just closed in an array of other constituencies. At stake, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives and 35 Senate positions. Democrats are confident of stealing control of the House from the Republicans, but could struggle to overturn a conservative majority in the Senate. And let's go back now to our top story for the day, which is midterm elections. Our correspondent Lori Lade has been following events, and she joins me now for the latest. Now, what's the betting on the outcome after the latest results, Lori?
Well, a couple of pollsters and a particularly accurate pollster at 538 polling puts the chance of the Democrats taking the House at 94% and the chance of the Republicans retaining the Senate at 89%, which is roughly where polling showed us going into the race. To be honest, there'll be a lot to take away for both parties. Both parties will be able to walk away from this election and claim victory.
And do we have an update on those crucial governors' races in Florida and Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, these are very interesting races for a couple of reasons. But so let's look at Florida first, because Andrew Gillum, the Democratic challenger, the Democratic candidate, presents himself as this progressive. He is vying to become the first African-American governor of Florida. That race is, the last stats that I saw, was too close to call. He was ahead by a whisker, but not by enough to call that yet. He's running against Rick Scott, who had been the governor, now wants to become Republican senator of Florida. So that one, too close to call. Stacey Abrams vying to become the first African-American governor of any state, female African-American governor of any state in the U.S. She is trailing her conservative opponent, Brian Kemp, by a large margin. It would be surprising to see her close that gap. Andrew Gillum, still too close to call. I'll be keeping an eye on that one for you.
All right. Well, and a look ahead to 2020 presidential elections. Two Democratic hopefuls won re-election to the Senate.
That's right. Elizabeth Warren was reelected in the state of Massachusetts, and Bernie Sanders, who presents himself as a socialist but caucuses with the Democrats in Congress, also won his seat. No surprises there, and I don't think it's any secret that both of these senators have presidential aspirations. But I would venture that neither of these candidates is able to lead Democrats on a national stage. Elizabeth Warren evokes memories of Hillary Clinton. She's prickly, she's difficult to like, she's wooden on the campaign trail. So I don't see her rising to national stature. And same with Bernie Sanders. While he has a very strong appeal to a certain cohort, he didn't manage to beat Hillary Clinton last time around, although he ran her quite close. He's one of the oldest candidates. He would be one of the oldest candidates in the race were he to run for president again. I don't see him being the guy either. One person to keep an eye on, there's a fascinating race developing in Texas. Beto O'Rourke, another candidate who considers himself to be a progressive, is up by a couple of percentage point and a half or so over Ted Cruz, the incumbent senator in Texas. Ted Cruz has national name recognition. He ran for president. He ran in the Republican primary, ran a second to Donald Trump in the primary. Now remember, Donald Trump called him Lying Ted throughout that primary campaign, but actually went down to Texas to campaign on Ted Cruz's behalf as that gap between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke became ever more narrow. Right now, Beto O'Rourke ahead by a small margin in Texas with about half the votes counted. The news agencies are saying this one is too close to call at the moment. But if Beto O'Rourke would have pulled this one out, he would be considered, I think, a potential candidate for president in 2020 for the Democrats.
Really interesting there. It's funny when you compared Warren there to Clinton. It reminded me of an interview she had made saying, you know, when women don't smile, they're often thought as really unapproachable. But when men do it, it's not an issue. I recall her saying Trump doesn't smile often and no one ever seems to have a problem with that. Thank you so much for that, Lori. Now, immigration, the economy, women's issues, partisanship all weighed heavily on voters' minds as they cast ballots to decide control of Congress and put Trumpism to the test. Though not on the ballot, the president looms large over Decision Day among both supporters and detractors.
And that there are different things that need to be taken care of on the local level, on the state level, on the federal level. And I don't think that he or his cronies, these loud, boisterous types of attitudes that they have, are working well for our country. And hopefully we'll have a change at the end of the day here. We'll have some people who will be in place who will make some changes for the better.
This is an extremely important time in American life, and we really all have to come together and vote for what we feel is most important in our democracy, to save our democracy.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. How? Why? Because he's not fair, he lies, and he's racist.
Well, I ended up voting for a lot of Republicans because I think they've got the best plan, and the economy's going extremely well now, and it's due, I think, to Republican leadership. Most of the candidates I favor are lining up behind Trump. And it's not because he's the world's greatest human being. It's because he's effective. He's getting things done. He's doing what he said he was going to do, which is very unusual.
I think President Trump has done terribly. I believe that we should have, as a country, we do need to have different perspectives that we can evaluate and talk about and argue about. But I don't believe that the leader of the country should be leading us down a path that alienates us internationally, that undermines some of the values that we hold dear, like people being equal, women's rights to control their own body. And so I feel like because of that, I don't feel he's leading as a proper president.
The reason why I'm out here voting today is because I'm doing like what Trump says, we're trying to make America great again. So I'm out here voting for the Republicans, and hopefully they can take control in our government and make America great again.
Meanwhile, Massachusetts residents voting in the midterm elections say President Donald Trump's tone and policies were on their minds, even though he was not on the ballot. Most of those in Cambridge who spoke after casting their votes said they were not thinking favorably of Trump as they made their choices. And Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nelson says cybersecurity officials are hoping for the best in the midterm election while preparing to react to the worst. Nelson says that the election will be the most secure in the modern era.
I can confidently say that the 2018 elections will be the most secure election in the modern era. At this time, we have no indication of compromise to our nation's election infrastructure that would prevent voting, change vote counts, or distrust the ability to tally votes. I think I would just start by saying I don't want anyone to get the impression that we are not seeing consistent efforts through foreign influence to sow discord and to present false narratives to Americans. We are seeing that. We absolutely are seeing that from multiple nation states. I think they win if they sow any element of doubt in the mind of an American that their vote was not counted and counted correctly. So I think we should all be very careful to jump to conclusions. There will be an assessment, as I said. We don't have any indication that's occurring right now when it comes to election infrastructure. But looking at their techniques and tactics and their main goal of sowing mistrust related to our democracy, that of course remains a concern of mine, that after everyone has voted, that they would try to make a claim that something went wrong.
All right, well, time for a short break now, but do stay with us because there's still more ahead.
Nigeria. We are 198 million productive people with over 900,000 square kilometers of fertile land. Nigeria's banking system has emerged strong and resilient from the 2016 crisis, which has enhanced our productivity in agribusiness and manufacturing. Come, invest in Nigeria's agribusiness, manufacturing, and value-added mining. Enjoy the Central Bank of Nigeria-led initiatives in funding interventions, stabilized exchange rate, friendly capital repatriation regime, and many more. The Central Bank of Nigeria's robust monetary policy and interventions under President Buhari's administration and positioned the economy to target and attain a GDP growth of 6% with a strong and growing external reserves. Come, invest in Nigeria. Nigeria, ready for business.
As a fashion writer, I know how quickly trends are created and changed. In business, it's no different. To stay ahead, I needed a plan flexible enough to meet my changing communication needs. More Business 2.0 didn't just give me voice and data in one package. I got a whole lot more. With More Business, setting up my website was no problem. But I'm not just a fashion writer. I also own a home decor store before I decided to open an accessory store. With my customized More Business plan, managing my staff's communication is easy. No matter how frequently they come or they go. With 9 Mobile's new online self-service this week, I could adapt my plans to include this.
From 2,000 Naira, choose a business bundle, customize your staff's voice and data lines, and enjoy a variety of add-on business services. Dial *200 *5# now to subscribe. More business.
Welcome back to Rise News, now live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I'm Folake Adesugba. Now, we're just going to cross over to Orange County, California, where Democrat Nancy Pelucci is speaking.
That's what we intend to do in a nonpartisan way. Republicans have their dark money and their dark message of division, but again, we have the excellence of an extraordinary generation of dynamic candidates. Let's hear it for our candidates across the country. The energy of the grassroots. Let's hear it for the grassroots. And under the leadership of Ben Ray Lujan, the determination to win. Across the country, our volunteers in politics, our VIPs, must continue to get out the vote. Get out the vote. Keep it going. Walk those precincts. Knock those doors. Make those calls. Text those messages. Get out the vote. So I ask all of you here, are you ready to take back the House for working men and women? Are you ready to help more Democratic candidates win? Are you ready for a great Democratic victory? I thought so. Onward to victory. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all very much.
Right, that's Nancy Pelucci, Democrat in California, Orange County, speaking there. Now, we're going to cross over to Lori and see what is happening there. All right, so Lori, what is the reaction to all of that at California, Orange County? We haven't heard much from there so far. What's happening?
First, let's start with Nancy Pelosi, because she's a rather controversial Democrat. She's the top-ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives. Now that suggests that were the Democrats to take control of the House, that she would ascend to be Speaker of the House. It's a role that she's held before. But she is not a particularly popular Democrat, and she has come in for so much criticism by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has really used her as a punching bag, along with Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader. But she has said that she may serve as Speaker of the House for a short period of time, so it's unclear whether she would lead the Democrats in the House should they win back the House of Representatives. But she said she's certain the Democrats are going to win, that there's a new generation of Democrats who have connected with the tone of the American people. So it feels as if she still is taking a leadership role in the party. So it will be very interesting to see whether she puts herself forward to become Speaker of the House again.
It's funny because I don't recall a woman that Trump hasn't used as a punching bag. But I mean, from what I'm seeing so far, from hearing her speak and hearing Team Kaine campaign at the other end, it seems like what I'm hearing is a bit similarity is the progressive people, and that seems to be the theme that is going on there.
And I'm glad that you picked up on that, because we spoke about this a little earlier. And I know that the Democrats have been wrestling with whether to present themselves as progressive, or whether presenting themselves as progressive is too close to socialism, which it's a word that many Americans have a visceral reaction to. When you talk about a single-payer healthcare system, which some Democrats are starting to do, the Republicans will parry that with saying, well, that's socialized medicine, and that seems to be the greatest insult that you can throw at a policy. Yet you're absolutely right that Democrats that are winning this evening are happy to consider themselves as progressive. Now, the reason this is so interesting is because the Republicans have really campaigned on national policy, and that's everything that Trump thinks is important: the economy, immigration. The Republicans, for the most part, are very unified on these issues, where the Democrats do not have a national leader. There's no real Democrat that has presented themselves as a standard bearer, someone who's going to lead the party into the presidential elections in 2020. So the Democrats are running on more on a pragmatic campaign, putting forth candidates that suit local interests, that suit the taste of local constituents. But the Democrats that we're hearing the most about are proud to consider themselves to be progressives. That means that they favor an expansion of Obamacare, an expansion of Medicaid, which is the federal health care program for the poor. Many progressive Democrats favor expanding that to wider portions of the population. So it is very interesting to hear successful Democrats standing up and say, yes, I consider myself to be a progressive. It makes you wonder whether that is the sort of policy stance that the Democrats may land upon as the 2020 presidential elections become closer to us. I would have said that a progressive label is probably too far to the left of most of the American people, but you can't argue with the fact that Democrats that are winning this evening are calling themselves progressive.
And also, Lori, now I know earlier we spoke about how Trump played a role in influencing people voting, whether that's in favor of him or not. That's yet to be determined. We don't know. But we also heard Nancy Pelosi say, go out there and vote. Make sure you vote, people. Let's hear, make your voices heard. Can you sort of just speak to us on that before I let you go there?
Well, I think that has been the astounding story of this election so far, is the estimates of voter turnout, how high voter turnout has been. The only estimate of turnout I've seen is run by a group that's aligned with the University of Florida, They are putting turnout at just under 45%. Now, I have not seen that confirmed anywhere else, but were that to be confirmed, that would represent a massive increase in turnout over previous midterm elections. We were only at 37% in the 2014 election. We haven't been above 40% since the 1960s. Looking at my calculations, if the 45% were to be confirmed, that would be the highest midterm turnout since World War II. Now, we also know that voters told pollsters that Donald Trump weighed heavily on their decision to come out and vote, weighed heavily on their decision in this election. We don't know whether that weighed heavily on their decision to vote Democrat or Republican. But it's not unfair to put these two things together, that 2/3 of voters said that Donald Trump influenced their decision and that voter turnout was very high. It's not unfair to say that Donald Trump was responsible for this increase in voter turnout in a midterm election. And say what you like about Donald Trump, if he is single-handedly responsible for increasing turnout in non-presidential years, then he has made a very positive mark on American democracy.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Lori, I've never seen midterm elections this important in all of my existence. Thank you so much for all the details. It's so great to have that from you. Thank you so much indeed, Lori. Now, more than 200 mass graves containing thousands of bodies have been found in areas of Iraq that were once controlled by the Islamic State group, a UN investigation has found. The graves were found in the northern western governorates of Nineveh, Kirkuk, Saladin, and Anbar. They could contain as many as 12,000 victims, the UN report said. Now, IS seized parts of Iraq in 2014 and imposed brutal rule, commonly killing anyone of whom it disapproved. It was eventually vanquished by a US-led air campaign backed by Iraqi government forces and allied militias on the ground, although pockets of IS activity remain in some areas.
100 mass graves containing the remains of thousands of victims have been discovered in areas formerly controlled by ISIL in Iraq, according to a UN report that we have released today. The report highlights the legacy of ISIL's relentless campaign of terror and violence and the victims' continued calls for truth and justice. While it is difficult to determine the total number of people in these graves, the smallest site in West Mosul contained 8 bodies, while the biggest is believed to be the Kasfa sinkhole south of Mosul, which may contain thousands. And meaningful truth and justice requires that these sites be appropriately preserved, excavated, and exhumated, and the identification of the remains of the many victims and their return to the families.
Meanwhile, an army search operation is underway in Cameroon to rescue dozens of people kidnapped from a boarding school. Now, government officials said at least 79 students and 3 others were seized on Monday in Bamenda, the capital of the Northwest region. The government and English-speaking separatists have accused each other of orchestrating the kidnapping. Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions have been hit by secessionist rebellion in recent years. Regional Governor Adolphe Lafrique de Ben Tuchofo blamed separatist militias for the kidnapping. But English-speaking separatists are accusing the government of staging the kidnapping as an attempt to discredit their cause. The authorities have declared a ban on vehicles driving between most districts of the Northwest region.
Despite what happened here, the state government will not surrender. We are going to make sure the students, the people that were abducted, are brought back to the classrooms. Measures are being taken by the security men in that regard. They have provoked. There are raping, killing, looting, abducting, but they are going to face a strong, powerful reaction by the powers that be, not only here in Bamenda, but elsewhere in the Northwest region.
The glasses are still there on the ground. Then in the dormitories, without fright, some of the students started packing their belongings. And in the boys' dormitory, 2 doors were actually broken. So they have taken students from Form 3, Form 4, Form 5, Lower C and Upper C.
Well, that's it for this edition of Arise News. Thank you indeed for being a part of the program. I'm Folake Adesugba, from me and the whole team here in Abuja and London. And a special thank you to Laurie for all the details, of course. But that's goodbye for now.